She stood in my closet, wearing my hoodie and socks, texting someone with a knowing smirk. I was on the floor, searching for the charger she always borrowed and misplaced. She didn't notice me looking up. He just gets me," she typed quickly. My blood froze. I stayed hidden in the dark corner of the closet like an abandoned appliance. A second later, she noticed me, her eyes widening not with guilt, but as if I'd interrupted something sacred. "Oh my God, Everett," she said, with a laugh that didn't touch her eyes. "Who gets you?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Without hesitation, she replied, "Fate, from work. You've met him, right?" I hadn't. Not once. "We're just friends," she added, as though that excused everything. Then she walked out, leaving behind the wreckage of what little trust I had left. The next day, I made pancakes. She didn't eat them. Instead, she spent 3 hours scrolling through her phone, posting inspirational quotes about independence while wrapped in a blanket I bought. Then came the moment I can't stop replaying. "Can you pay my credit card bill this month?" she asked without looking up. "I splurged a bit, but I'll pay you back." I stared at her. The new shoes, the manicure, the unfamiliar perfume, everything whispered his name. Calmly, I said, "As a friend, I can only help you find a job." She blanked as if I'd spoken another language. "What? I thought we were just friends," I said. "And I'm the kind of friend who supports job hunting, not shopping sprees." Her face fell like the Wi-Fi cutting out mid-scroll. She didn't laugh or respond. For the first time in ages, neither did I. The silence stretched longer than it should have. She didn't speak or move, sitting there like someone had drained her confidence. But I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel strong. I felt pathetic, like a man who finally managed one clever line after years of swallowing words he should have shouted. The next morning, she didn't make coffee. That was her routine. Every day I woke up to the smell of hazelnut creamer and the faint hum of Taylor Swift songs she'd never admit to liking. But that day, nothing. Just the cold, metallic quiet and a half-made bed. She was already gone when I entered the kitchen. No note, no message, not even the usual, "Be back later, love you." My stomach churned. I checked her location. Funny enough, I still had access. Her dot hovered near Indigo Bloom Spa. Last winter, I'd suggested a couple's massage there. She'd laughed in my face, calling it a waste of money. Now she was going solo. By early afternoon, her silence persisted. The doorbell interrupted my thoughts. I opened the door, expecting a delivery. Instead, it was Tate. He stood there, taller than I'd imagined, hair perfectly styled, teeth gleaming, his voice smooth as velvet. He greeted me with an unsettling grin, like he was about to sell me something too good to be true. "Hey man, she left her charger at work, said she needed it today." His words hung in the air. I tightened my grip on the doorknob. "You just show up at married women's houses now?" My tone was sharp, unyielding. He chuckled nervously. "Dude, it's not like that. We're just friends." "Yeah, sure," I muttered. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. He shifted awkwardly, and I felt like a man clinging to the edge of a crumbling cliff. Finally, I took the charger from him, slammed the door shut, and locked it, twisting the deadbolt for good measure. I sank to the floor, clutching the charger, staring blankly at the wall for what felt like forever. When she arrived home that evening, she looked drained, freshly showered, but emotionally spent. Without a word, I handed her the charger. She accepted it silently and retreated to the bedroom. Moments later, I heard muffled sobs. But they weren't the tears of someone grieving the loss of love. They were calculated, frustrated cries, the kind shed when plans unravel unexpectedly. It hit me then. She wasn't mourning our relationship. She was mourning the collapse of her backup plan. That night, sleep eluded me. Her tears echoed in my mind, not for me, but for something else slipping through her fingers. I wished they had been the desperate cries of someone realizing what they were about to lose. Instead, they sounded like disappointment, like she saw me as collateral damage in her grand scheme. Around 2 a.m., I rose quietly, padding into the living room. I couldn't bear lying next to her any longer. It felt like embracing betrayal itself. Her purse sat on the coffee table, half-zipped as usual. For once, I ignored my politeness and reached inside. Yes, I know how wrong it sounds, but I craved truth more than I cared about preserving appearances. Nestled within, I found a folded envelope, handwritten, no stamp or return address. The words, "Can't wait till it's real," were scrawled in blue ink. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. "Just hold out a little longer. He's almost out. I'm ready when you are. Yours, T." I sat there, rereading it, my throat constricting until breathing became difficult. Almost out. That was me. They were waiting for me to break or walk away. Or perhaps she was crafting a story of my instability, ensuring her transition would appear seamless. At dawn, she entered the room wrapped in a blanket, pretending everything was fine. "Why are you up?" she asked, feigning concern. Wordlessly, I held up the note. Her lips parted, then closed. She settled across from me, legs crossed, not even attempting to look surprised. "You went through my stuff?" she said softly. That was her defense. I didn't yell or scream. I simply whispered, "You've been planning this." She didn't deny it. Instead, she turned her gaze toward the window and muttered under her breath, "I didn't think you'd actually read it." In that moment, I realized I wasn't in a marriage anymore. I was being slowly pushed out of my own life. Suddenly, the phrase, "we're just friends," felt like the cruelest joke imaginable. Not because of the other man, but because of what it revealed about me. I had been living as nothing more than a placeholder in a life she was already halfway out of. That night, sleep eluded me. After she admitted to planning her escape with Tate, I sat motionless on the couch, staring into the void. Her footsteps echoed faintly across the floor once or twice. Perhaps she checked to see if I'd lost control yet. But I hadn't moved. I remained frozen, clutching the note as though it were a scalpel deliberately left inside me. The next morning, I didn't bother packing a bag. I simply walked out with my wallet and keys. She didn't ask where I was going, didn't try to stop me, didn't even feign concern. But I heard the lock click behind me as I stepped outside. I drove aimlessly, without a destination in mind. I called my brother, but his voicemail was full. A motel seemed too permanent for someone spiraling the way I was, so I ended up parking at a grocery store. For 2 hours, I sat there, watching strangers come and go, carrying flowers, children, receipts, pieces of lives that felt whole and purposeful. I had none of that. Eventually, I returned home. I'm not sure why. Maybe I hoped she'd be waiting. Maybe part of me wanted her to cry again, but this time for the right reasons. Instead, when I tried to unlock the door, my key didn't work. She'd changed the locks. My heart sank. I rang the doorbell once, then twice. No response. Then my phone buzzed with a text. "You said we're just friends, right? Friends don't get keys." I don't recall how long I stood there staring at the door. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves. A neighbor walked by with his dog, pretending not to notice me lingering foolishly on my own porch. Finally, I made my way around the side of the house and sat on the back steps. Opening my phone, I saw a notification from my bank app. She had purchased tickets for a weekend getaway, the same spa she'd visited last week. I knew exactly who the second ticket was for. She wasn't leaving me cleanly. She was erasing me, quietly, methodically, as if I were nothing more than a bad habit she'd finally mustered the discipline to quit. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I wrapped my arms around my knees and let the weight of it all settle over me. It wasn't just betrayal, it was something far worse. She wasn't merely cheating on me, she was moving forward without sparing a thought for whether I'd survive the wreckage. After what felt like an eternity sitting on those cold steps, I stood up and walked away from the house I once called mine. I didn't slam the gate, shout, or shed a tear. I simply left, like a man who finally understood he was never part of the future being built within those walls. That night, I slept in my car again. The next morning, I remembered I still had access to our shared cloud drive. It wasn't out of spite or anger, I just needed to retrieve some tax documents. Logging in, I scrolled through files filled with fragments of a life we'd built together, now reduced to digital remnants. Each folder felt heavier than the last, a stark reminder of everything I'd lost. Yet, amidst the pain, clarity began to emerge. This wasn't just about her actions or the lies, they were symptoms of something deeper. I had been clinging to a version of us that no longer existed, holding on to memories and keepsakes as if they could bridge the gap between who we were and who she had become. As days passed, I started processing my emotions differently. Writing became my outlet, a way to untangle the chaos in my mind. I reflected on patterns I hadn't noticed before, how often I questioned my instincts after years of manipulation, how deeply I sought validation from others during moments of doubt. Therapy sessions helped me confront these tendencies, offering tools to rebuild trust, not just in others, but in myself. Slowly, I began forming new connections, ones rooted in authenticity and mutual understanding. People like Delia, whose gentle honesty reminded me what genuine relationships felt like, played a pivotal role in my healing journey. Looking back, I recognize that while the pain of betrayal cut deep, it also forced me to grow. I learned to value vulnerability over silence, to embrace emotional resilience rather than suppress it. And though the scars remain, they serve as reminders of how far I've come, a testament to the strength found in rebuilding one's life piece by piece. That moment, I spotted a folder labeled Final Plans. My heart sank. It contained PDFs, legal papers, budget sheets, travel plans, and a document titled After Everett. I opened it to find a meticulously crafted blueprint for her post-divorce life, bullet points, goals, and strategies. The plan was chillingly clear: gain full control of our joint account, relocate with Tate, book an Airbnb, switch health insurance, block me if I became unstable, gather therapy records, make copies. There was even a checklist. A checklist! I was listed as though I were an unwanted subscription she was canceling. It felt like she had decluttered me from her life using some twisted organizational method. What hit hardest wasn't just that she planned her exit, it was how calculated and emotionless it all seemed. She hadn't cried in secret or acted out of desperation. No, this was deliberate, cold planning. Her requests for financial support weren't needs. They were tactics to drain me before vanishing. Scrolling further, I found sections labeled "Talk Track if confronted." Phrases designed to manipulate me stared back. "You're imagining things again. You've always been too sensitive. This is why we don't work." It dawned on me then, she hadn't only planned to leave, but also to discredit me beforehand. When I inevitably unraveled, no one would believe it was her fault. That folder shifted something inside me. I wasn't just heartbroken, I felt erased, rewritten in her narrative as weak and disposable. And the worst part? For years I'd played along, believing her version of me without question. Not anymore. Reading every word of that cold, calculated document named after myself transformed something within me. I stopped seeing myself as a victim. Anger hadn't set in yet. I simply felt hollow, like she'd already discarded the parts of me she deemed unnecessary and left behind a shell to keep paying bills and asking, "Is everything okay?" I didn't return to the car that night. Instead, I ended up at a diner off Route 9, sipping stale coffee while grappling with a bitter truth. She never intended to fight for anything. She simply wanted me to fade away quietly. At sunrise, I returned. Not home exactly, but to what used to be home. The front door remained locked, my keys now useless. But I remembered the garage code, and thankfully, she hadn't disabled it. I entered the house like an intruder in my own life. She was still asleep, curtains drawn, her phone charging beside a half-empty glass of wine and an open browser tab displaying destination wedding packages. I didn't shout or confront her. I moved through the house silently, gathering items she'd overlooked in her spreadsheets. Not the TV or furniture, but the photo albums, letters I'd written during our first year together, the birthday card she kept because it once meant something. I took the artwork we picked out in Vermont, the handmade clay mug she gifted me when she still believed in us. Then, in the hallway drawer beneath unpaid bills and expired coupons, I discovered something unexpected, a second phone, a burner. As I picked it up, it buzzed once. A message from Tate. "We're still on for the 18th. I'll be waiting by the lake." Her clean escape wasn't just emotional, it was digital too. 2 lives. One she lived in front of me, and another she built without me even knowing. I left everything on the counter except for a box of personal belongings and that burner phone. No money, no revenge, just a sticky note on the fridge. "Tell your friend the 18th is canceled." He'd understand soon enough. Then I walked out. No slamming doors, no dramatic music, but she must have felt it when she woke up, the silence that follows when someone stops begging to stay. She called the next morning like nothing had happened. Her voice carried that rehearsed sweetness, like a customer service rep trying too hard to sound sincere. "Ever, can we please talk?" she said. "I think we both overreacted." Overreacted? I'd read her plan to erase me entirely. Found her second phone, saw texts from her affair partner planning a romantic getaway, and got locked out of my own house. And now she wanted to call all this an overreaction. Still, I agreed to meet, not because I believed her, but because I needed to see how far she'd go to pretend nothing had happened. We met at a neutral cafe, somewhere she thought she could keep her composure. She wore sunglasses indoors, as if shielding herself from daylight, or maybe just the truth. Sipping her latte, she said, "I know things got messy, but we can figure this out as friends." That word again, friends. I leaned forward, calm. "You locked me out. You lied for months. You wrote about how you'd spend my money after I was gone, like I was some inconvenience in your schedule." She blinked. "You weren't supposed to find that." "Oh," I replied with a bitter smile. "So I ruined the surprise." Just then, the cafe door opened. Tate walked in. Not coincidentally, not accidentally. She had invited him. He spotted her first, waved, then hesitated when he saw me. I stood slowly, not to confront him, not to fight, but because I needed to look him in the eye when I spoke next. "You still on for the 18th?" I asked. He froze. "What?" "She canceled it," I said. "But she didn't tell you, did she?" Her face went pale. Then I pulled something out of my jacket pocket. Not a weapon, not a threat, just her second phone, the one she thought I didn't have. Tate glanced at it, then at her. "You said you deleted everything," he muttered. Her hands began to shake. I turned to leave, pausing only briefly. "Oh, and Tate," I added over my shoulder, "next time you plan to replace a husband, make sure you're not just filling a temporary role." As I walked out, I heard her start to cry. But this time, it wasn't calculated or strategic. This time, she knew the script had flipped, and I wasn't playing my part anymore. After that scene in the cafe, I didn't go back. Not to her, not to the house, not to the version of myself that would have once begged for answers, closure, or one more chance. That person was gone, quietly, permanently. For a few days, I stayed with my cousin, letting the weight of everything settle into clarity. There's a strange kind of freedom in realizing you don't need to fight for someone who never truly valued you. The lies, the manipulation, the betrayal, they were hers to carry now, not mine. I stopped asking why or what I did wrong. Instead, I focused on rebuilding the parts of myself she tried so hard to dismantle. It wasn't easy. Some nights, memories crept in uninvited, reminding me of moments I wished I could forget. But every morning, I chose to move forward, to write my own story instead of living in the shadow of hers. Eventually, I stopped waiting by the lake. The time had come to take action. I filed the necessary paperwork, closed our joint accounts, and transferred what little remained to a new account under my name alone. She never called, not once. But through a mutual acquaintance, I learned that Tate had ghosted her just 2 days later. It seemed he had no idea he was merely a pawn in her game, not the grand prize. He wasn't truly in love with her. He was enamored with how she made him feel by tearing me down. I could have retaliated. I could have exposed everything, the messages, the meticulous spreadsheets, the contents of the burner phone. But something unexpected happened instead. I moved on. At first, it felt strange. Eating dinner without waiting for her to come home, making purchases without second-guessing myself, no longer flinching at the sound of her ringtone. These small moments were jarring at first, but then something even more surprising occurred. I began to smile again. One morning, I decided to take a walk around the block. There was no destination in mind, but as I strolled, I noticed things I hadn't seen in years. A child's colorful chalk drawing on the sidewalk, the gentle chime of a neighbor's wind sculpture, a bakery I didn't realize had opened. Life had been unfolding all around me while I'd been trapped, serving as someone's silent support beam. Now I was constructing something entirely for myself. I won't claim everything is perfect now, but it's real and it's mine. No hidden agendas, no forced smiles, no "we're just friends" lies. Just freedom, one messy, healing day at a time. If you're sitting where I once was, wondering if walking away means losing, let me share what I discovered. Walking away meant finding myself. Reflecting on this journey, there are moments that stand out sharply. Was it the revelation about the burner phone, the ambush at the cafe, or perhaps the infamous After Everett folder? Each moment carried its own weight, but together they formed the stepping stones toward clarity and renewal. If you've ever had to rebuild after betrayal, your story matters. Sharing it might help someone else find their way toward healing. After all, sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most profound transformations.